Okay, so the Catherine Isau, Dr. Isau plant anatomy published, and she reported curly top viruses spreads through a plant via the food conducting or phloem tissue, and the anatomy of sea plants by Catherine Isau was published. Peter Ravan, when Catherine Isau died, Peter Ravan, director of anatomy and morphology, Missouri Botanical Garden, remembered that she absolutely dominated the field of the plant biology even at the age of 99. Okay, so the morphology of flowering plants. Now, structure or morphology, all characterized by presence of roots, stems, leaves, flowers, and fruits. Okay, now all of them have roots, stems, and leaves. The underground part of the flowering plant is the root system, while the portion above the ground forms the shoot system. Now the root. You see the taproot system seen in the mustard, and the primary roots divides into secondary and tertiary roots. Right. Now the monocot primary root is short-lived and is replaced by a number of roots. Now these roots originate from the base of the stem and constitute the fibrous root system, as seen in wheat plant. In some plants like grass, monstera, and the banyan tree, roots arise from parts of the plant other than the radicle and are called adventitious roots. Then the functions of roots like storing reserve food material and synthesis of plant growth regulators. Shoot system and root system constitute, you see, the primary root. You see there is primary root and then secondary root. You see in the shoot system there is fruit, then stem, then node, and then internode. Then first diagram shows the taproot system mustard. You see laterals and main root, then fibrous roots in wheat plant, and adventitious roots in grass, monstera, and banyan tree. Okay, now region of the root. Okay, thimble like structure is root cap, and then a few millimeters above the root cap is the region of meristematic activity. Now the cells of this region are very small, thin walled with dense protoplasm. They divide repeatedly. Okay, now cells proximal to this region undergo rapid elongation and enlargement, and responsible for the growth of the root. Now this is region of elongation. Now the cells of the elongation zone gradually differentiate and mature, and hence this zone proximal to the region of elongation is called the region of maturation. Okay, now some of the epidermal cells from this region from very fine and delicate thread like structures called roots hairs. You see in the diagram region of maturation, then root hair, then region of elongation, then region of meristematic activity, and then root cap. Now the stem. Now stem is the ascending part of the axis, right, bearing branches, leaves, flowers, and fruits. The stem bears nodes and internodes. So the region of the stem where the leaves are born are called nodes, while internodes are the portion between two nodes, right? Internodes between the two nodes, right? Now the stem bears buds which may be terminal and axillary. Now stem is generally green when young, but later often become woody and dark brown. Okay. The main function of stem is spreading out branches bearing leaves, flowers, and fruits. Now the leaf. It is a lateral, generally flattened structure borne on the stem. Then it has a node that bears a bud in its axil. The axillary bud later develops into a branch. Now the leaves originate from shoot apical meristems. They are arranged in acropetal order. Now the most okay. So the most important vegetative organ for photosynthesis is leaf. Then three main parts. Three main parts of typical leaf: leaf base, petiole, and lamina. That is, leaf base may bear two lateral small leaf-like structures, stipules. In monocot, leaf base expands, sheath covering the stem into a sheath covering the stem partially or all wholly. In some leguminous plants, the leaf base may become swollen. This is pulvinous. Okay, and then the petiole that hold the blade to the light. It is long, thin, flexible petioles. They flutter in the wind. Oh, it shows cooling effect. Then lamina or leaf blade. There is usually known as midrib. So usually a midrib. Okay, usually there is a midrib. Now there is usually a midrib, and the shape, margin, apex, surface, and extent of incision of lamina varies in different leaves. So venation, like so leaves of dicotyledonous plant shows reticulate venation and parallel venation in most monocotyledons. Okay, now parts of a leaf: reticulate venation, parallel venation. Now types of leaves: simple, when its lamina is entire or when inside the incision do not touch the midrib. Okay, then there is a compound leaf. A bud is present in the axil of petiole in both simple and compound leaves, but not in the axil of leaflets of the compound leaf. Now, compound leaves may be pinnately compound leaf and palminately compound leaf. Palminately compound leaf in silk cotton, pinnately compound leaf in neem. Okay, rachis represents the midrib of the leaf in as in neem. So this is the structure: neem and then silk cotton. Then there is phyllotaxy. Then arrangement of leaves on the stem or branch. Arrangement of leaves on the stem or branch is phyllotaxy. Okay, now alternate, opposite, and whorled. In alternate example, China rose, mustard, and sunflower plants. Opposite calotropes and guava plants, and more than two leaves arise at a node, that is whorl, that is Alstonia. So China rose, guava, and Alstonia in the diagram. Now inflorescence. Inflorescence shoot apical meristem changes to floral meristem. Okay, now interns do not elongate and the axis gets condensed. The apex produces different kinds of floral appendages laterally at successive nodes instead of leaves. So when a shoot tip transfers into a flower, it is always solitary. Now arrangement of flowers on the floral axis, it's inflorescence. Now two major types of inflorescence: racemose, cymose. Racemose axis, racemose, the flowers born acropetally, and cymose, it the main axis gets terminated. It is an solitary, and the flowers born basipetally order. Right. Now the flower. Now what about the flower? So the flower is reproductive unit in angiosperm, right? Now a typical flower has four different kinds of whorls arranged successively on the swollen end of the stalk or pedicel called thalamus or receptacles. Now okay, so lily, the calyx and corolla are not distinct and are termed as perianth. So bisexual, unisexual flowers, when both androecium and gynoecium within a flower, bisexual. if either only stamen or only carpel is unisexual. Then symmetry: actinomorphic, that is radial symmetry; zygomorphic, bilateral symmetry; and asymmetric, that is irregular. So actinomorphic, that is mustard datura chili; and zygomorphic, pea bean cassia gulmohar; and asymmetric, that is canna. Okay, the flower. Then there is the bract, reduced leaf, found at the base of the pedicel or stalk. They are the swollen end, that is thalamus or receptacle, are called the bracteate flowers, and those without bracts, these are ebracteate. So hypogynous, perigynous, and epigynous, right? So based on the position of calyx, corolla, and androecium in respect of the ovary on thalamus, flowers hypogynous, perigynous, and epigynous. Hypogynous: mustard, chanaros, brinjal. Perigynous: hypogynous with superior ovary, perigynous with half inferior, that is plum, rose, peach; and epigynous flowers, that is inferior ovary and guava and cucumber and the ray florets of sunflower. Guava and cucumber. And in here in phyllotaxy, it was the examples of like opposite calotropis and guava. In here guava, cucumber, and ray florets of sunflower. Kind of confusing. Now calyx. Generally sepals are green. Okay. Now corolla. The shape of and color of corolla vary greatly in plants. Corolla may be tubular, bell shaped, funnel shaped, or wheel shaped. Now ostivation. So mode of arrangement of sepals or petals in floral bud with respect to the other members of the same word is ostivation. Now velvet, twisted, imbricate, and vexillary or papilionacea. So velvet is calotropis, twisted China rose, lady's finger, and cotton. Imbricate cassia gulmohar. So imbricate cassia and gulmohar. And then pea bean flower, vexillary papilionacea. So vexillary uh, okay. So when sepals and petals, they in a wall just touch one another at the margin without overlapping. Okay. So these are the velvet estivation, right? Now twisted, if one margin of the appendage overlaps that of the next one, and so on. So this is twisted. If the margin of sepals or petals overlap one another but not in any particular direction, that is imbricate. And there are 5 petals. The largest, that is standard, overlaps the 2 lateral petals, that is wings, which in turn overlap the 2 smallest anterior petals, that is keel. This type of estivation is vexillary or papilionacea. Now androecium, composed of stamens. Now they have the filament and anther. Now anther usually bilobed, and each lobe has 2 chambers, the pollen sacs, and the pollen grains are produced in pollen sacs. Now a sterile stamen is called staminode. Okay, that does not produce pollen grains, right? A sterile stamen is staminode. Now there is epipetalous, when stamens are attached to the petals in brinjal, and epiphyllous in lily, so when attached to the perianth. Okay. Now polyandrous, when stamen in a flower may either remain free, that is polyandrous, or may be united in varying degrees. So monoidalpous, seen in China rose, when the stamens may be united into one bunch or one bundle. And if there is 2 bundles, that is diadelphous, as seen in pea, or into more than 2 bundles, that is polyandrous, as in citrus. Now variation in length of the filaments within a flower, as in salvinia and mustard. Okay. Now gynoecium. Gynoecium is the female reproductive part of the flower and is made up of one or more carpels. Now stigma is usually at the tip of the style. and is receptive surface for pollen grains. Now, each ovary bears one or more ovules attached to a flattened cushion-like placenta. So, when more than one carpel is present, they may be free, as in lotus and rose, and uh, as in lotus and rose, okay, and are called apocarpus, and they are termed as syncarpus when carpels are fused, as in mustard and tomatoes. So after fertilization, the ovules develop into seeds and the ovary matures into a fruit. Now, placentation. The arrangement of ovules within the ovary is known as placentation, right? They are marginal, axial, parietal, basal, central, or central and free central. So marginal placentation, the placenta forms a ridge along the ventral suture of the ovary and the ovules are born on this ridge forming two rows, as in P. Okay. So when the placenta is axial and the ovules are attached to it in a multilocular ovary, the placenta is to be axial, as in China rose, tomato, and lemon. In parietal placentation, the ovules develop on the inner wall of the ovary or on peripheral part. Ovary is how kya? Ovary is one chambered, but it becomes ovary is one chambered, but it becomes two chambered due to the formation of false septum, that is mustard and argemone. So this is parietal, that is mustard and argemone. So when the ovules are born on central axis and septa are absent, as in dianthus and primrose, the placentation is called free central. In basal placentation, the placenta develops at the base of ovary and a single ovule is attached to it, as in sunflower and marigold, right? Now the fruit. So as you can see, marginal, then axial, then parietal, then free central, and then the basal placentation, right? So this is it. Now the fruit. So the fruit is a characteristic feature of the flowering plants. So fruit is the characteristic feature of the flowering plants. Okay. A fruit is a mature or ripened ovary developed after fertilization. So if a fruit is formed without fertilization of the ovary, it is called the parthenocarpic fruit. Okay. Now generally the fruit consists of a wall or pericarp. Okay. Now this pericarp may be dry or fleshy. When pericarp is thick and fleshy, it is differentiated into outer epicarp, middle mesocarp, and inner endocarp. Okay. In mango and coconut, the fruit is known as drupe, and this drupe is developed from monocarpellary superior ovaries. These are one seeded. Okay, these are one seeded. Now in mango, as you can see, the middle fleshy edible mesocarp, and the mesocarp is fibrous in coconut. Now the seed. So ovules after fertilization develop into seeds. Okay. So a seed is made up of seed coat and an embryo. An embryo is made up of a radical and embryonal axis. If cotyledon is one, that is as in wheat and maize, and two cotyledons as in gram and pea. Now structure of a dicotyledonous seed. Now they have testa and inner is tegmen. The hilum is a scar on the seed coat through which the developing seeds were attached to the fruit. So this is the hilum scar, and above that hilum is a small pore called the micropyle. Okay. So cotyledons are often fleshy and full of reserve food materials. Castor, the endosperm formed as a result of double fertilization, is a food storing tissue, and these are the endospermic seeds. So in plants such as bean, gram, and pea, the endosperm is not present in mature seeds, and such seeds are called non-endospermous seed. See in the diagram, seed coat, then above that hilum, on the downside it is a micropyle. It's showing two cotyledons. On the upside it is plumule, on the downside it is radical. So this is the oral structure of dicotyledonous seed. So structure of monocotyledonous seed. Generally monocotyledonous seeds are endospermic, but some, as in orchids, are non-endospermic. Now in the seeds of cereals such as maize, The seed coat is membranous and generally fused with the fruit wall, right? Now, the endosperm is bulky and it stores food. The outer covering of endosperm separates the embryo by a proteinaceous layer called aleurone layer. The embryo is small and situated in a groove at one end of the endosperm. Now, it consists of one large shield-shaped cotyledon known as scutellum and a short axis with a plumule and a radicle. The plumule and radicle are enclosed in sheaths which are called colluptile and collurizza. See in the diagram. It's showing the endosperm and inside there is embryo. Okay, now in here seed coat and fruit wall is fused. Then there is aleurone layer that separates the end by ऐसा है भाई. So the endosperm and embryo gets separated by an aleurone layer. Okay, so embryo has an scutellum. Okay, and plumule is covered by the colluptile and radicle is covered by the collurizza. So this is the structure of monocotyledonous seed. Okay, and then the semi-technical description of a typical flowering plant. So semi-technical description of a typical flowering plant, right? Now the plant is described beginning with its habit, vegetative characters, roots, stem and leaves, and then floral characters, inflorescence and flower parts. So this is how plant is described, beginning with its habit, vegetative characters, that is roots, stem and leaves, and then floral characters, that is inflorescence and flower parts. Okay, BR stands for bracteate, K stands for calyx, C stands for corolla, P stands for perianth, A stands for centroecium, and G stands for gynoecium. G on the downside line, that is for superior ovary, G on the upside line for inferior ovary, and on the side it is for male, on downside it is for female, and for both, that is bisexual plants, plus sign actinomorphic and percentage sign for zygomorphic plant flower, right? Now a floral diagram provides information about the number of parts of a flower, their arrangement and the relation they have with one another. Okay, the position of the mother axis with respect to the flower. The position of the mother axis with respect to the flower is represented by a dot on the top of the floral diagram, right? On the top of the floral diagram. Now, so gynoecium being in the center and calyx being the outermost, right? Now the mustard plant, that is Brassicaceae, belongs to family Brassicaceae, right? Now Solanaceae, it is a potato family, and there is vegetative characters, that is stem, leaves, and so this is it. Now Solanum nigrum, it is a makoi plant, right? Now inflorescence, it is solitary, axillary or cymose as in Solanum. Okay, now flower, it is bisexual and actinomorphic. Then calyx, sepals 5 united persistent velvet aestivation corolla corolla petals 5 united and velvet aestivation. Now androecium, stamens 5, that is epipetalous. Androecium, stamens 5, epipetalous, right? Gynoecium, it is bicarpellary, obligately placed syncarpus. Carpels are fused, ovary superior, bilocular, placenta swollen with many ovules and axile. So fruits are berry or capsule. The seeds many endospermous, right? The seeds many endospermous. Then floral formula, that is plus, then both, then K in the bracket 5, C in the bracket 5, addition fusion with the A, that is 5 stamens, and then G on downside there is line and 2 is fused. So economic importance, like plants, they source of food. So tomato, that is Solanum tuberosum, No, it is not for tomato, it is for potato, right? Solanum tuberosum is for potato. So tomato, then brinjal, and then potato. Now spice for chili, medicine, belladonna and ashwagandha, and fumigatory, that is tobacco, and ornamentals for petunia. Okay. Now the morphological features of stems, like the presence of nodes and internodes, multicellular hair, and positively phototropic nature to differentiate the stems from leaves. Okay, leaf is a lateral outgrowth of stem developed exogenously at the node. Okay. Okay, seeds either may be monocot or dicot. They vary in shape, size, and period of viability. Okay, the floral characteristics form the basis of classification and identification of flowering plants. The floral characters form the basis of classification and identification of flowering plants. The floral characters form the basis of classification and identification of flowering plants. Right?